Well, the Canucks finally making a move and dealing JT Miller, but that wasn't all. It was a busy Friday night for that organization, and we're going to break it all down here on the latest on the fourth period, presented by CCM Hockey. I'm Kate Pettersson, and with me is Dave Pagnotta to break down all of this. But JT Miller finally on his way out of Vancouver after weeks of speculation, and that is a deal with the Rangers for Philip Hedl and Victor Mancini and a protected first-round pick. So let's talk first about that one. Dave, is that what you expected in return for JT Miller? And do you think that this is a good deal for the Vancouver Canucks?
I think under the circumstances, yes, this is a good deal for the Vancouver Canucks. Now, since we already know the first round pick is flipped, I won't include that as part of this discussion right now. But looking at this on the surface, they wanted to get a center. They got one in Philip Hedl. Now, he's had some injury problems. He has been injury prone. So that is certainly part of the discussion point here with respect to his health and his ability. But if he can stay healthy and hit his stride, he has the potential of being a very solid, legitimate second line center in the National Hockey League consistently. You add that, you add a young defenseman, Mancini, who a lot of people are high on. He had a good collegiate career. He's had a taste with the Pittsburgh Penguins. He's a good skater. He's somebody that a lot of people are describing as a late bloomer. So this could be a bit of a sneaky addition for the Vancouver Canucks here. Now let's properly. They're not getting a first pair defenseman and a superstar center in part of this. But again, under the circumstances, based on how things had gone and what they were looking for, they checked off some boxes and they kind of let this whole saga finally come to an end.
All right, and they weren't done there. They continued to cook on Friday night, making a trade. We joke that Vancouver might be Pittsburgh of the North because Jim Rutherford likes doing deals there, and there's plenty
Right?
of brass that came from there. So they go to Pittsburgh, and this time, here's the trade. They flip that first round pick that you mentioned, Vincent Desharnais and Danton Heinen, plus prospect Melvin Fernstrom in exchange for Marcus Pettersson and Drew O'Connor. Now, multiple Petterssons on that roster, three of them, in fact. But what do you think of this trade? They were really getting to work there.
Yeah, I mean their eyes are on the playoffs, and that this is what they're gunning for. They feel they can make some noise later on this season, especially with this whole JT Miller, Elias Pettersson situation, presumably behind them. So you go out, you get a defenseman. We've said this pretty much all season, Kate, that they've been looking and have been in the market for a top four defenseman to add to this group. They get that in Marcus Pettersson. Jim Rutherford and Patrick Alvin, obviously very familiar with him out of Pittsburgh. They brought him in from Anaheim. But again, they check off a box here as well, and they bring in a third line player in Drew O'Connor, interchangeable, can play center, can play the wing. And again, they check some boxes here. They move out in these two deals. They freed up a little over 2.86 million in cap space. There's been no retention in either of these two deals. It allows them to be more flexible, potentially moving forward ahead of the deadline. And again, they hit the boxes. Now, by moving out, Desharnais and Heinen, these are two players that they've been looking to trade for a good chunk of the season to this point. They get rid of those bodies. They bring in players that they feel are going to fit their roster right now, even though they're on expiring deals. And there's no doubt in my mind they will try to sign Pettersson to an extension. If they get all that done, you look at it and go, okay, it's worth giving up what will eventually likely be a mid-round, first-round pick in this deal.
Well, you mentioned that cap flexibility. I've got to ask you about all three teams, but let's start with Vancouver. Are they finished cooking, or is there more action between now and March 7th?
Yeah, I think they're going to let things kind of cool down a little bit. Patrick Alvin will be speaking and addressing these deals with the media later today at 3 o'clock Pacific time, 6 Eastern. I think he's just going to wait. Let's see how everybody gets acclimated. And if anything pops up over these next, just under now 5 weeks ahead of the trade deadline, then they could pounce. They'd still like to add a scorer to the lineup. So we'll see kind of where they end up going in that direction. But if they stay in the playoff mix, if they stay in the wild card picture, or better, they'll look to make another adjustment, another addition, and they won't look to trade Brock Besser by all accounts if they're in the full swing of things in the playoffs. But right now, as of today, they're a little over $6 million in cap space. They'll continue to accrue that. It'll give them more flexibility.
All right, New York. Been the talk of the trades the last
Well,
few months or a few weeks. What do you think about New York? Are they done?
this is going to be another situation where they're going to look to see what type of moves may become available to them. Adding JT Miller, Vincent Trocheck's already posting on Instagram. He's happy to have his longtime buddy uh, on the same team. So that'll be interesting. Look, this is a bittersweet kind of scenario for JT Miller. Reaching out to his camp, he loved his time in Vancouver, but he just wanted that whole drama to end. So as much as he loved it there, he moves on. He goes back to a familiar spot with the New York Rangers, and he really improves that lineup right out of the gate. They got the best player in the deal. There's no question about it. That will improve their chances. They've been steady in the first month. Now we crack into February. Let's see how he adjusts to his, I guess, new team. But this is a good ad for the New York Rangers, and they will continue to see how they perform, and that'll be based off of what decisions they make ahead of the deadline.
All right, lastly, Pittsburgh. We talked about them likely being sellers. Is the for sale sign still up? And are they still going to make those changes outside of the core that they've said is not leaving?
Yeah, it's up. They're throwing the blinkers on it. They're putting arrows towards it. They're not done. We talked about it Thursday. They got a lot of pieces and balls up in the air. This obviously checks a couple of their boxes by moving out Pettersson and O'Connor, who we talked about. They've been available for some time. Pittsburgh will continue to listen. They're going to look to see what other deals are available to them. Michael Bunting, Ricard Raquel's generated a lot of interest. There's hesitancy to move him, but they will listen. Erik Karlsson, uh, Anthony Beauvillier is another pending UFA. Matt Grzelcyk. They've got a lot of pieces that are up in the air that they are going to continue to listen on. They added a bit of cap space, but they've got cap flexibility in order to pull this off. And Kyle Dubas said in a statement yesterday after his deal was done that this is exactly what they wanted: NHL caliber plus a high pick. They're going to continue to look to do that as the weeks move forward and we get closer to that March 7th deadline. But Pittsburgh not done by any stretch.
All right. Well, this has been fun because there's speculation, and now we're getting to talk about some real action, which is great. You mentioned 5 weeks to that deadline, so we will stay on it here on the latest on the fourth period, presented by CCM Hockey. Dave, thank you so much, and hopefully we'll talk to you soon.